From the high plains of the Midwest, I bid you good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever your time zone might be. My nod to the late and great Art Bell. I'm Keith Sharp.
And I'm G. Dressel.
And we welcome you to Life After Life, a paranormal webcast where we talk about the paranormal, UFOs, or the unexplained. And the biggest question of them all, what happens when we die? Stay tuned.
You did it.
Hey.
You did it.
We did it without a mistake. Well,
That was good.
Can we go back and watch it? There
No,
might
you
be a mistake or two. Who knows?
I thought that was a fantastic. I think every intro we do is a fantastic intro.
Well, even if they're screwed up, that one I still love is from the Mandela Effect, where it just kept playing it over and over and over.
I was just telling you when you replayed that on our kind of year in review, I couldn't stop. I was laughing. So hard.
Yeah. I mean, when I was putting it together, I was laughing my ass off.
Dude,
it was
so
hilarious, very funny. Well, we got a great show today, man.
It's gonna be awesome.
We got a great show. Let me
glad to be back.
Do some shout outs here if I find we got a lot of people in here already. Look what's going on. See, this would happen. There we go. All right. So, guys, sorry we weren't here last week. Pam got COVID.
Everybody had COVID.
And then my daughter, my grandson, my other granddaughter.
Yep.
And then
my kids,
his kids. So I had to send everybody home.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't matter. Everybody got sick anyway, right? So, but we got a great guest tonight.
Oh my God.
Yeah. If you guys are Zodiac fans, you are in for a treat. We got the great Drew Beeson on, and he has this book called Sighting In on the Zodiac. And you guys need to go to Amazon and get this. It's only like $8.95. Great read. I read it in 2 days. Couldn't put it down because you guys know I love Zodiac stuff.
You were so excited to get that book.
Yeah. I was very excited. And like I was telling him, I got it on the electronic book too.
Yeah.
So like if I'm at the store, I'm waiting, I can whip out the book from on lunch and I could still read and catch up with everything. Look, Mona's not sick. She's right there.
Oh, Mona, I was like worried. I was telling Keith before the show, she's not feeling well. I hope you're feeling better.
Yeah.
Keith being mean, pointing at her.
I'm sorry. Well, if we do a crime show,
they can't see you. Were like,
no, if we do a crime show, Mona's on.
Mona's like,
it's the paranormal stuff. Mona's like, I got something to do.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's bring him on with also our special guest host, of course, as you know, is Mr. Rick over here, right?
Single Seven from the Art Bell Show.
He kind of turned into a permanent co-host.
Yeah, I love it.
We love it.
What's cool too is he was like in San Francisco during this time too.
Yeah. So let's bring Drew on, man. Drew Beeson, hello. How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
We are great. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this with us. Everybody's very excited. Everybody was really pissed off last week. It was funny because on that video we had like within 30 seconds when I announced it, we already had 2 thumbs down on it.
Oh,
2 or 3 thumbs down. So, but I told everybody, hey, we'll do this and we're going to do it.
Yeah.
All right. So, Drew, you've got a suspect that you think is the Zodiac killer, correct?
Yes.
And let me just say this too. You watched that little featurette, is that correct? Where Don Chaney was on his name was Arthur Lee Allen or something like that.
Yeah, his name was Arthur Lee Allen. Correct.
Okay. Yeah. So I want you to tell everybody how you got started in the whole Zodiac thing.
I had always known about the case, and I've always liked unsolved mysteries, like the TV show Unsolved Mysteries. I was a huge fan of that show. I still think it's the greatest thing ever put out on television to this day. Big fan of Robert Stack. I mean, just everything, Unsolved Mysteries. Of course, they never covered the Zodiac. I don't know why.
Oh, yeah.
But they covered things like DB Cooper, which is
right.
That's probably my top love of an unsolved mystery.
And
case.
you got a book.
Yeah, I do.
Cooper. And go and tell everybody the title of that.
It's called Paratrooper of Fortune, the story of Ted B. Braden.
Right on.
Yeah. So
we may have to have you back on for that as well.
Whenever I get my DB Cooper tattoo, we'll do an episode.
Yeah, he's getting a DB Cooper.
He's getting an Art Bell.
That's
cool.
cool.
I want to get an Art Bell one.
Cool.
Yeah. Have you seen my
we all
picture
go back to
here?
Art Bell. Yeah, I know. I noticed your poster. Yeah, definitely a huge Art Bell fan. I
And
love
then
how
just
you gave him tribute in the beginning.
Just to rub it in a little bit, here's my autographed Art Bell book.
Oh, that's fantastic.
See it.
I mean, I go back, yeah, heavily influenced by Art Bell and anything unsolved, UFOs, paranormal. And, you know, I'm not really sure where along the way I picked, you know, I've always had some knowledge of Zodiac and the ciphers. I'm not a big math guy at all. I'm a writer, have a writing degree. So I was never into the, you know, the math and codes and stuff. I mean, I thought it was cool, but I never really was drawn to that aspect of Zodiac. What I liked about the case is that it was unsolved and it was well known and it's American. You know, I never got real big into Jack the Ripper because that's over there, you know, and Zodiac's here. That's, you know, Bay Area. I'm from Texas, but been to the Bay Area. So at least it's American and a classic unsolved American mystery. So that's kind of what drew me to it. And like you mentioned, you know, I never really planned to get hardcore into it till I saw the documentary called on YouTube called His Name Was Arthur Lee Allen.
Right.
And that documentary is about the prime suspect in the Zodiac killer case to this day, a man named Arthur Lee Allen. He died in 1992. And he was the subject of a book by a man named Robert Graysmith called Zodiac. There's a picture of Arthur Lee Allen. And the David Fincher film is based on the Robert Graysmith book. So it's heavily pointing towards the guilt of Arthur Lee Allen. And when I watched that documentary, which came out in tandem with the Zodiac film and another documentary as well called This is the Zodiac Speaking, which is real retrospective of the whole case. That was the really cool thing about when they did all that, because a lot of people were still alive. A lot of the police officers that worked the case were still able to come and talk, because now a lot of them passed away. One of them being a guy named Detective George Bauer. Had passed away, and he was the last person to really be in charge of the Zodiac case fully. And so that was a shame, but at least in 2007, when all that came out, you know, a lot of those guys were still alive and able to give their testimony. So during His Name Was Arthur Lee Allen, you know, the whole thing is supposed to be focusing on, you know, the supposed guilt of Arthur Lee Allen. But in that documentary, they interview his closest friend at the time of the murders, and a guy whose name is Donald Lee Cheney. And the more Donald Lee Cheney would speak during that documentary, the more he seemed to kind of point the guilt towards himself. But, you know, he was like doing it in this weird deflective way. I mean, he would make these tall claims, such as he claimed he licked Arthur Lee Allen's stamps. And this came
what
later.
A weird thing to do.
Yeah. Why would you lick your friend's stamps?
How many?
Yeah, dude.
How many friends, Drew, have you asked to? Hey, would you mind licking these stamps for me?
Never once.
I've asked at least 50 of mine.
Yeah, I never once. And I thought, wait, I go, this is crazy. And that came out in the early 90s. So of course the documentary picks it up. And I thought to myself, what other reason would this man make that claim other than being afraid his DNA is going to show up on some of the Zodiac correspondence?
Right.
So
you think it's an alibi?
Yeah, it's a good cover. Actually, it's a good story. So if you found his DNA, he'd just say, I told you I licked the man's stamps, right?
Yeah.
Do you think they could have been working in tandem in some sort of weird?
I believe they did.
Way?
I believe they worked together to some extent. I think Don Cheney was the mastermind. I think he was the more intelligent of the two. Arthur Lee Allen's a pretty smart guy, smarter than people thought. He was a child molester, Arthur Lee Allen was. So automatically, Don Cheney's going to have the upper hand because he's married, he's got children. He's just going to, you know, society-wise, he has no record. And he's going to automatically be seen as the more credible of the two if anything goes wrong. So I think he was the mastermind of the case. And what he saw in Arthur Lee Allen was a perfect patsy. Somebody to take the fall or just deflect enough of the suspicion over here. And the strange thing about it is Don Cheney's story is that Arthur Lee Allen told him, and this is important. His original story was that on New Year's Day of 1968, that he went over to Arthur Lee Allen's house on that New Year's, and he basically told him how he was going to become the Zodiac, how Arthur Lee Allen was going to do this. He said, I can't find a job. So, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to be a killer. You know, I don't need a good resume for that. And I mean, he says all this in that documentary, by the way. And he's going to call himself Zodiac, and he's going to go to Lover's Lanes. And apparently he drove Don Cheney around to two of those Lover Lanes, one being Blue Rock Springs Park, the other being a place called Lake Herman Road, which is where the first canonical Zodiac crime happened back in December of 1968. One thing that Don Cheney slipped up on, though, is when he originally came up with this story, he said he was going to cheer Arthur Lee Allen up from being fired at his job as a teacher at Valley Springs Elementary. Problem with that is he hadn't been fired yet. Arthur Lee Allen was not fired until mid 68.
So he got caught
what
in a
happens
lie.
now? What happens now? He has to move his timeline an entire year. So he jumps from New Year's Day 1968 to New Year's Day 1969. And this is huge. And it's the only major mistake that Don Chaney makes. And he really doesn't slip up again. But he slipped up that one time, and that's all it took. So it's very problematic in his story because he talks about how when he went over there on New Year's Day, now it's 69 in the documentary, and he says, well, what happened when you were over there, Don? And he says, well, Arthur Lee Allen got a brand new Zodiac wristwatch. And that watch is important. People should never forget about the Zodiac wristwatch. And I know that's a big part of the movie, and it should be, because not only is the watch called Zodiac, the word Zodiac, but it also has the cross circle logo, which everyone identifies with the Zodiac killer. The name and the cross circle logo almost never in history go together, other than with that brand of wristwatch, which has been out for way before Arthur Lee Allen got it, way back. I think they started making those watches in the 40s or 50s. They're pretty old, definitely predates these crimes. So that's important to know that that wristwatch has both the name Zodiac and the cross circle logo. And that's where I believe the name does come from. So anyway, he says he goes over there, and Arthur Lee Allen says, hey, I got this watch from my mom for Christmas, because this is just New Year's Day. So this is just a few days after Christmas. And he's asking Don about the watch. Do you think I got stiffed on this gift from my mom? And Don says, no, it's a nice watch. It's a nice Swiss movement, blah, 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 blah.
Why would you say that about your mom anyway?
Oh, that's how he was. That's true. That part's believable, because he had a
really
really weird relationship with his mother. His mother did nothing but pay for everything that he had, but he basically hated his mother. Really strange guy, Arthur Lee Allen. He was the perfect guy to blame. But the problem with the wristwatch in the Christmas Story is that Arthur Lee Allen's younger brother, Ron Allen, got an identical Zodiac wristwatch. But Ron said they got him for Christmas 1967. See the problem here? The story already has holes in it when he has to move that timeline. He's got to fix things now, because they got those watches for Christmas 67. And he's already moved his timeline to 1969, meaning Arthur Lee Allen says he got the watch for Christmas 68, which is not true. It's Christmas 67. So here you start with these discrepancies already coming out of Don's mouth, and really pointing attention to himself and away from Arthur Lee Allen.
Wow. So let's talk. Go ahead. I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
You're just explaining it, but do you think that he was really into publishing himself and playing the cat and mouse at this time? Because he started sending those letters to news agencies and in the code and all that weird stuff.
I think he planned it ahead. Probably as early as early 1968, as I mentioned, the first, what we call the canonical crime. There was 4 of them at Lake Herman Road in December of 68. I think he planned it well in advance of that. I think he had the name in mind. I think he knew that Arthur Lee Allen was going to have some level of involvement. Actually, Arthur Lee Allen was questioned by the police just about 10 days after the third canonical crime, which happened in September of 69 at a place called Lake Berryessa. Arthur Lee Allen was questioned, and no one knows why. I mean, he's a suspicious type guy, but why was he questioned so soon after one of the murders? I think he was tipped off. The police were like, hey, you need to go look at this guy. And when they questioned Arthur Lee Allen just after this third murder, they said, well, where were you on this date of September 27th, 1969? And he said, well, I was going to go to Lake Berryessa, but I changed my mind at the last minute and went to Salt Point Ranch or something up the coast to do some fishing. And then he admits that he said that day he had bloody knives in his trunk, which that was never seen, by the way. A lot of people use that as evidence for Allen, but no one ever actually saw those knives. It's just something he confessed to, apparently. So he knew they were coming. He knew that they were going to come question him, which shows some level of planning between these two guys. Like, hey, maybe Allen's not in on the murders or not, but he knows that we're going to try to take credit for these crimes, and you're probably going to get questioned, but don't worry, they're not going to find anything. So that's what I get from that. The fact that he was questioned just not many days after the third canonical crime. And there was nothing else to put Allen on the radar at that point. Nothing.
So this
no
kind of
violent history, nothing.
And here's just a personal note. We used to always go camping at Lake Berryessa. That was a nice place,
Yeah, until Zodiac showed up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
until he showed up. Until he
this
showed
was
up.
about 1970 on, so he had already murdered somebody there.
Yeah. That it was a bad thing, and now that was one of that. That's the way we know that he wore the costume, the famous hood, and
Yeah.
had the cross circle over it. And without that, we wouldn't know because both victims actually survived. It was Cecilia Shepard and Brian Hartnell. Cecilia Shepard lived for about 2 days. They were both stabbed, and Brian Hartnell survived. I mean, it was a couple, and they were bound, and they were made to lay on their stomachs. And the Zodiac killer took out a foot-long blade, according to Brian Hartnell. But Brian Hartnell is the best witness to the Zodiac because he's a really smart guy. He had his wits about him when all this was happening. So he's the reason we know about the hood and the cross circle and, everything that happened there. What's strange is when the Zodiac was going to attack them and walking up, he never said, "I'm the Zodiac killer," or any of this weird ritual stuff. He just said, "Hey, I just want your car keys and your money. That's all I want." So he was kind of like making them calm, like, okay, if we just, comply with this guy, we'll be all right. But of course, it didn't turn out that way.
What do you suppose if he was planning on killing both of them, why wear that crazy costume? Do you think it's just a shock value to terrify him more or something? Or
I think it meant something to him. I think it personally meant something to him. I think it was a role that he was playing like an actor. I think it was a masterwork, and I think he was into the role. We know the Zodiac was heavily influenced by Gilbert and Sullivan play called The Mikado. And there is a character in that called the Lord High Executioner. I think that had some influence on it, and I think he's literally acting out the role. Of course, as most people will tell you, with the Zodiac, it was far more important than the attacks or the fact that anyone died. There was 5 people that died in the crimes. But what was more important was the letter writing, the ciphers, and the costume. That was the theatrics and the fear that was installed was far more important than actually disposing of people.
So do you think that both of them got together maybe and said, let's see if we can commit the perfect crime. Let's see if we can commit murder and get away with it. I mean, it's actually, I hate to say brilliant, but in a way, it's pretty damn smart.
I think that started that way. I think it started like is the guise of a story, a book, or a comic book, and then it got out of hand. I mean, and then someone acted on it first, or maybe in tandem. That's what we don't know exactly, but I think it started like that, as like a theme for a book or a novel.
Right.
And that's how it started. The famous case of Leopold and Loeb was like that. 2 friends that wanted to commit the perfect murder that eventually got caught for killing that little boy because they wanted to commit the perfect crime. I think there's a lot of similarities between these 2 cases.
That's interesting. Hey, that could have something to do with the timeline that you and I were talking about before the show, though.
Which timeline?
The drive that it would take on July 4th to commit a murder.
Yeah, that was one of the things on.
I don't want to jump ahead. It made me think of that.
Now we'll talk. We'll bring that up later.
Okay.
But let's eliminate some suspects. Let's try to do that. So let me hang on just a second here, Drew. Okay, so this may cover you up a little bit, but we can still hear you.
We do our best.
This is Tom Voigt's favorite.
Yeah, Richard Gaikowski.
Okay, so what's for and against this guy?
With Gaikowski, there's just not a whole lot for him, in my opinion.
Right.
His whereabouts during the first canonical crime, which is Lake Herman Road, kind of put him in Northern Ireland. He was a newspaper reporter. He had a magazine called Good Times, and it's not definitive that he was even in Northern California during the Lake Herman Road crime, and it's kind of muddied. That whole thing is kind of muddied. His whereabouts aren't very clear. It looks like they couldn't ever really find a passport for him, and of course he would have needed a passport to get to Northern Ireland. Richard Gaikowski is a homosexual, number one, and it'd be kind of odd that he's going after heterosexual couples on lovers' lanes. At least 2 of them could really be considered lovers' lanes. And so that is odd. Another thing against him would be he's was a real big civil rights advocate. So to deprive people of their lives would be really strange for a guy like that, because I mean, this guy would literally cry at things, like, he marched to, did the Freedom March. That's why he was in Belfast, Northern Ireland then. And when he saw people being mistreated, he was known to cry. So it's just a bad match. Physically, he's not really stocky, and all the descriptions of Zodiac, they're describing a stocky person, and Richard Gaikowski's just not stocky. So that's just some of the basics. Going for him. He went by Geik for short, and the word Geik appears in one of the Zodiac ciphers, but it's not one of the exact spellings of Geik that he would use. So it's kind of loose. I don't like it when people bring forward suspects and try to hang and bring forward anything in the ciphers to try to back them up, because that always backfires on people.
You even found your name in a cipher, didn't you?
My name is in the cipher. I'm glad you brought that up, because I always forget that. My name is in the decoded 408. Isn't that crazy?
Drew
My
Beeson.
name is in the decoded 408.
What?
Yeah, it's fully connected. My fully connected name is in the Zodiac's decoded 408 cipher.
Time traveler, Zodiac's time
I was gonna say
traveler.
that's some time travel
All
shit.
right, well,
right
you're under
there.
arrest.
That's crazy. I know.
Yeah.
I didn't find
Hey,
that.
by the way, single sevens with the time travel police.
Yeah.
A guy named Rick found that and sent it to me, and I was like, "Whoa!" I never even would have thought to look. I don't get credit for that. A guy named I think it's Rick Hansen found that, and he's like a really weird into all this stuff, but he found that, and it blew me away. I was like, "Whoa!" That's so when people bring that up, I'd say my name's in it, and I was born in '69, so it couldn't have been me.
Maybe it was a time traveler and it said Drew Beeson will solve the case. So.
Hey, it could be, or it's predictive programming.
There you go. There you go.
That's exactly what it is.
Why do you suppose? I mean, Tom Voigt's done all this research. I mean, I guess he's probably one of the longest researchers, is he not? In the Zodiac?
Oh yeah,
and
I would say so. And then Michael Butterfield pretty close behind him.
And why would he put so much stock in? I mean, there's not a whole lot of evidence connecting Geik.
No, it all comes from a guy named Blaine, and a story he had. And Blaine's kind of doesn't have the best credibility. And they did a TV show about it, and they called Blaine. Sometimes he just goes by Blaine once, and they gave him the code name Goldcatcher to make it sound all ominous. I don't think with Gaikowski, there's just not much for him. He ran a little newspaper in San Francisco called Good Times. And the Zodiac used the phrase "good times" in one of his letters. It said, "Of the good times I had in Vallejo." So that's a small little piece of circumstantial evidence, and you'll find out later how any of that circumstantial stuff compares to what I have. But there's just not a whole lot for him. There's just not. I mean, he was said to have followed one of the victims, Darlene Ferrin, to Albany, New York, and he did. And Darlene Ferrin did move for a time to Albany, New York, and Richard Gaikowski did work at the Knickerbocker newspaper, but there was never anything tied in. And they said he might have been obsessed with her, but I don't know why. She wasn't some pageant queen or anything, and I'm not trying to disparage her, but like I said, Richard Gaikowski is gay. I don't know. I don't get the whole obsessed with Darlene thing. There's no proof of it.
I never liked Geik for any of it. I mean, even when Tom first came out with it, I thought, nah, I don't think so. Because he really doesn't look like the sketch, for one. He doesn't look heavy enough. And
he's not.
Yeah. So here we'll knock out two.
He has black glasses on.
Yeah, well, so did everybody in 1960. Yeah, it's funny because you
pull out a yearbook from that year in college or any yearbook. Yeah, that's
my
guys in it.
My Uncle Ricky's 1968 picture. He could have been a Zodiac. So okay. There's
another one.
There's two. Two at the same time.
Two that need to be flushed rather quickly on either side.
Well, that's why I put them together.
Yeah, they're both equally terrible. I hate to come off that way, but they're just not good. Ross Sullivan, we'll start with Ross. He's the guy on the left that when he came out, everybody goes, he looks like the sketch. It's got to be him. And there's just not a whole lot. He's kind of intriguing. Ross went to Riverside College, where a lady named Sherry Jo Bates was murdered in 1966 on Halloween Eve. So that's not considered what we call a canonical Zodiac crime. A lot of people do. They just, when you hear Sherry Jo Bates, they're like, oh, that's a Zodiac killer, right? And in the Zodiac, just call it community. I'd say that it used to be maybe 50-50 if it was a Zodiac crime or not, but now it's probably shifted to like 70, not 30, 30 maybe. It's kind of lost a lot of its luster of being a Zodiac crime.
He was really too mentally ill, wasn't he, to come up with
very
something?
Mentally ill. Yes. He had terrible, I think it was schizophrenia or manic depressive. I mean, or a combo. I mean, he yeah, he had extreme mental illness, and he just did not have the mental wherewithal to do what the Zodiac did, to not get caught, to do the ciphers. One thing that they say that he did, and this is funny because I've never seen proof of it, I just accept it because he's not a good suspect anyway, is that he had a cryptography class. Oh, and I've never even seen any real proof of that. I mean, if he did, it's interesting, but I don't think he did. He did go to Riverside College at the same time that Sherry Joe Bates did. But like I said, now it looks like Sherry Joe Bates was probably not even a Zodiac crime that the Zodiac took credit for.
There was some interesting things as far as, I mean, I hate to admit that at first I thought, okay, he's the Zodiac. And
no, don't tell me that. Come on. No,
but let me say why. No. Let me say why though, because I thought Sherry Joe Bates was a Zodiac crime, and I don't now. But the thing was, they said there were just a lot of coincidences where he didn't show up for work the next day. They said he wore military boots. And for him just not to show up the day after Sherry was killed, I thought was odd. Now, I heard he also, just recently, I heard he had an alibi that he was at his brother's girlfriend's house the night of the murder or something. So he was actually cleared. I think he was talked to.
I've never heard that. I never heard he had an alibi.
Yeah, I heard it was one of I don't know if it was Butterfield. It was someone I was listening to, but they said that he had an alibi. Maybe he's the McDuff guy, right?
Yeah, he is now.
Flavor of the week. Well, he was a Ross Sullivan guy back in the day.
Oh, big time. Yeah. He was convinced it was Ross.
No, but Drew, I didn't stay on that very long because I have a lot of college psychology, and the guy trapped a man in a phone booth naked.
Trapped him.
So
he trapped a man in the phone booth naked, and what's really intriguing about that is he's so big that they bothered to note that in the police report.
Yeah,
300 pounds, and this is before the first Zodiac crime. Okay, so it's 300 pounds and 6'2". That's really way too big to be the Zodiac. It just is. That's a crusher. It really is, and there's no evidence of him ever being in one of the counties where the crimes were committed. He moved from Southern California to Northern California to Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
And, never been seen in Vallejo. He wasn't even known to have a car at the time. Now, did he walk to Lake Berryessa? Can you walk to Lake Berryessa? There's somebody on here that's been there. Can you walk there?
Right. So,
I don't think so. He was not even known to have a car. He may have even been in a mental a thing at the time, and I mean, he didn't have a car. He had a disorder called I might screw this up, Pickywin syndrome, and he basically died of obesity because he had this disorder. He was a dishwasher, and I'm not putting down dishwashers, but I don't think the Zodiac killer had to be a dishwasher with the intelligence that's shown in doing the ciphers, being undetected, not getting caught, doing these crimes and flaunting them in front of the police and not getting caught. It's probably someone in a little bit different position than a dishwasher. So, yeah, he looks kind of like the sketch, and he went to Riverside. That's about it.
We could all put glasses on and comb our hair back and look like the Zodiac. So.
Yeah. And there's a Zodiac killer researcher named Tahoe 27 who's fairly legendary through the years in Zodiac research on message forums, and she's the one that found the Tim Holt connection, what we call the Wheel of Death, by knife, by gun.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's a huge find in the case.
Big find.
She actually talked to Ross Sullivan's brother. He had two. And he told her, like, number one, that he didn't think Ross was the Zodiac, and number two, told her something that would basically rule him out entirely. But in confidence, he told her not to tell anybody, and she's got a lot of street cred in Zodiac world. I mean, to make the Tim Holt find.
Yeah, and the rumor was for a long time that his brother thought he was the Zodiac killer. Isn't that correct?
And that's not true.
Yeah,
neither one of his brothers ever thought that. That's just more spin. Just like him taking a cryptography class. I've never seen proof of it. I just accept it because I don't think he's a starter anyway. But if he was, I'd probably want to say, okay, show me his course schedule. Right. Can I actually see where he took this cryptography course? I've never seen it.
Right. I mean, you think they'd have those records still, I would think.
Yeah, definitely.
But I mean, even if you had like one cryptology class, you're not going to be able to come up with this. I mean, it took over 50 years to get that thing figured out. So
yeah, he's a non-starter. He was kind of interesting back then, but like I said, now they're coming out and Riverside PD, as you know, never believed that it was a Zodiac crime. They always thought it was
Right.
her boyfriend.
Her boyfriend, right?
Yeah, because she came back. She got engaged in San Francisco, came back, and the boyfriend didn't know about it and was livid.
And
There
the
was
crazy
rumors that
thing
the
is that-
boyfriend had died recently, but I think he's still alive, so I'm not going to even go near him. But I
Yeah.
think it was him, even though there was a DNA done on him that came back negative. But I still believe it's him, like they do in Riverside. They're all convinced it's
Well,
the
I'll
boyfriend.
tell you the psychology behind that is she was so brutally murdered that usually that's a personal crime. That's someone who knows someone. That's someone who hates that person, who's very angry at them.
Very
So-
angry. The attack was brutal, more brutal
Yeah.
than
Almost-
any Zodiac attack.
Right.
And she must have known him because when she left the library around 6:30, I don't remember the exact time, but it was still early evening. And she went back to her VW Bug, and the distributor cap was taken off, so she couldn't start her car. But until the people heard the screams in the courtyard, it was about 4 hours later. So whoever it was, she knew him.
Oh, let me ask you something, because this is something I didn't know. Is it true that the letter that was written at Riverside that was signed Z or whatever, that they traced it back to like a 14-year-old kid?
Yeah, they said that those were hoaxed, and it was a press release from the Riverside Police Department. But the problem with that is, and I believe that it's probably what happened, but it's so poorly written, the
Mhm.
press release, that it's hard to make heads or tails of it. It's so poorly written. It's like a 10. I hate to say that bad things about 10-year-olds. It's like a 5-year-old wrote it. It's terrible. So it's kind of unclear. But yeah, that dealt a blow to anybody that believes that Sherry Jo Bates was a Zodiac crime. And there's a lot of hardcore Zodiac researchers and authors that they just consider it a canonical Zodiac crime, which I never did.
And the
It was,
DNA.
at best, I was ever 50-50 on it, and now I'm probably almost zero. But
Right.
but the press release was terrible. Yeah, it said they found someone that says that they admitted to hoaxing the what they call the Bates confession letter.
Yeah.
And that they found the guy, and it was like somehow they ruled him out for being able to be the Zodiac. Maybe he was way too young, but they believed him about hoaxing the letters. So I don't know. That's still kind of muddy because of the press release, and they haven't followed up on it. So that whole deal is weird.
Didn't the DNA from the stamp actually match this kid?
That I haven't heard.
Yeah, I read that somewhere, that the DNA, and that's kind of how he confessed to it. They checked the DNA against him, and supposedly it matched this like a 13, 14-year-old kid.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I know they're comfortable that it was. So yeah, that dealt a blow to Bates being a Zodiac crime for sure.
oh, big time. And the funny
And to
thing
Ross
is,
Sullivan for that matter.
right? And they still think to this day that the boyfriend did it. I mean, it's like,
Yes.
good Lord, they couldn't solve that.
They still believe the boyfriend did it. He told his friends that night that he was mad at her. 2 of the friends passed polygraphs. That he was going to go find her. He was, really mad.
Right.
Like I said, when he came back, I mean, he doesn't live in the U.S., by the way. And when he did come back to visit the area, supposedly the police met him at the airport or kind of surprised him. And I guess I don't know if he voluntarily did it. And supposedly he made a comment like, "What took you so long?" But the DNA was negative. That I think they got from under Sherry Jo's fingernails.
Okay.
But it was negative. Maybe it was one of his friends that helped. They found a wristwatch in the courtyard. But, I lean towards him, but I definitely don't think it's a Zodiac crime. I think he simply took an easy credit for it by saying my Riverside. I see how you have stumbled upon my Riverside activity, and the rest is legend.
Right, and that gets into Kathleen Johns. We'll talk about that here in just a minute. But looking over, okay, so now we have Lawrence Kane,
Larry Kane. How are you? How are you? Larry Kane's from Brooklyn.
Very strong Brooklyn accent.
Very strong Brooklyn accent.
That I think that definitely Brian Hartnell would have noticed that and said that.
Yeah, he had a strong Brooklyn accent. How are you? I'm the Zodiac killer.
Yeah, exactly.
Brian did not describe that. Another thing about Kane is he's pretty short. He's 5'7". With his hair's piled up a little bit, maybe he makes it to 5'8". Those are too short to be the Zodiac, especially if you go by Cecilia Shepard, who I believe Cecilia Shepard gave the best height estimate of the Zodiac, but I'm a little biased. But she clearly said, about 6 feet, and so he's too short. He's not stocky. He's a small guy. There's just nothing. Larry Kane comes from an ex-detective named Harvey Hines. and he thought he solved the case because he saw all this stuff in the ciphers. Here we go with the ciphers again.
Yeah.
You know, and anybody that gets brought forward with the ciphers is a non-starter for me. But he may be connected to a murder of a lady named Donna Lass in Lake Tahoe, and he could be a good candidate for the murder of Donna Lass. We don't know. You know, she was never found. Her body was never found.
Right. I was going to ask you about that. If you thought possibly, because they had the hunting for the Zodiac, that special, they actually talked to a witness who said, yeah, Larry Kane was in Lake Tahoe at that time. And so who knows if the guy's telling the truth or not, but I was wondering if you thought maybe he was involved in that.
They worked in the same building.
Right.
She was a nurse at a hotel casino, and he had a real estate office at the same time. So they probably crossed paths at minimum.
Right.
Larry had a lot of convictions for a lot of petty crimes, theft. He had been in a bad auto accident, so he had a brain injury from it. So I don't really see how he would have had the mental faculties to be able to do what the Zodiac did as well. His handwriting was nowhere close. They got handwriting samples from him, not even in the ballpark.
Yeah, I've seen them, and they're not even
nothing.
close at all.
Yeah, Brooklyn accent, no handwriting. Just not. There's nothing there. It's just Harvey Hines really, really pushed it, and the other police that knew him at the time, and I was told this by some ex-police people. One was ex-SFPD. He said that everybody hated Harvey Hines. They just hated the guy. It was just impossible to talk to, be around. And they said, this is interesting. If you ever brought up the name Don Chaney around Harvey Hines, he would literally become livid. Two different police told me that separately that didn't even know each other.
That's interesting.
I don't want to get conspiratorial, but two different ex-police told me that.
Well, you never know. Okay, and then here's Morph's favorite guy right now.
McDuff.
And I guess now at the time of the crimes, the picture on the left, would that have been him, or the picture on the far right? I mean, how young was this guy during the time?
He was young. He was too young. I think at the time of Lake Herman Road, he was 23. All right. I know him to be close. He was pretty young. And, if you look at the Zodiac and the letters and phrases that he used, some pretty crude and stuff like that. If you analyze all that, it just does not seem like a 23-year-old talking, no matter how intelligent the 23-year-old could be. I mean, you could be 19 and be some super off the chart genius, but you have to have that life experience to be able to use a lot of the phrases that he did. And it's clear to me that the Zodiac had, some kind of post high school education in mathematics. And McDuff doesn't have a mathematical background. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it's not math. I think the big bombshell Morse had on the guy was that his wife found a cryptology book. Here we go with the cryptology again.
The box that said guilty on it, right?
Did the guy write his name in it? That's kind of compelling. He found him because he lived near a payphone in Vallejo, near where the Zodiac called in after the Blue Rock Springs attack. And I think he lived pretty close to that. His parents had a business or something over there. That's how he got on Morse radar, I believe, because he lived near that location. I think it was Tuolumne and Springs, and he lived like a couple blocks from there, that intersection. So that the book, he wears glasses. That's all I got. That's all I can do.
Glasses.
Yeah. So if in that box would have been Paul Stein's driver's license, then okay, maybe.
Something.
But because you would think a box that says guilty, okay, well, we got a cipher book, big deal. But do we have any personal items from the victims in there?
Yeah, we need a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. So now I got the two worst for the last, and this has got to be
one of them.
That's got to be one of the worst suspects of all. And Drew, what floored me is TMZ took off with this story.
So did Fox News.
Yeah, Fox News. They were saying Zodiac solved. And
what?
Yeah, they were saying Zodiac solved because
that's two of the major news. They really go out other way to do their.
It was a slow news day.
Absolutely.
Due diligence. They do so much of that.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Drew, but the sketch, all that guy was doing is adding a few characteristics. Like
it's just showing a little age. The sketch artist who really wasn't that very well trained at it. was just putting some age lines in there. And
Right.
that Zodiac composite was made by almost 100% of the input of a 13-year-old girl. People
Yeah.
seem to forget that. Her name was Lindsay Robbins, and
Yeah.
had a
Is she
couple
the
younger
one that was in
siblings,
the-
and she was the main driver of that sketch.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, at night, right?
Yep,
Across
the
the
night of the
street.
Stein murder.
Wow.
They were
that's-
across the street too, right?
Yeah, yeah, they were
Wow.
across the street, looking through the window. Dark night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And something you said last night on one of your on your YouTube show, and I was thinking the same thing. They were saying, "Well, we know where the guns are at. They're in the Sierra Mountains." And I'm thinking, okay, I'll help donate money to get a helicopter for you if you need. I mean,
Yeah, they were like, "Oh, well, we're 50 and above, and we can't make the hike." Really?
oh, yeah,
You got the
hire
Zodiac
somebody.
guns up in the mountains, and you're over 50. I'll make the hike. I'm 52. I'll make that hike any dang day. You know.
Yeah.
Give me a Red Bull or a Coke. I'm down.
Absolutely, absolutely.
These
That's
guys
why-
are these guys are a joke. I'm sorry. I mean, and I'm aware of these guys because they did the same thing with DB Cooper and a suspect named Robert Wesley Rackstraw.
right.
This team of investigators, and I've debunked Rackstraw 6 ways to Sunday. He's a terrible Cooper suspect. I mean, he's not terrible, but he's better than Gary Post is for Zodiac. I'll give him that. But
That
I've
sketch
already
looks
known
like
known
DB Cooper.
this team's routine.
It
They
does.
Yeah, the
find
Zodiac,
somebody and sink their teeth in.
yeah, the Zodiac sketch does look like DB Cooper.
That looks
sketch.
like DB Cooper right there. The
Yeah,
Yeah, I've
sketch.
heard that kicked around. And Frank Morris that escaped from Alcatraz. A guy named David Gold.
Oh,
will
that-
tell you they're all
yeah.
the same.
Oh my God! Yeah, I actually listened to a little bit of that the other day, and it's just like it's way out there. Okay, so to me, I don't know if you agree, but this has got to be the worst.
Him and Post.
Yeah. I
He's
mean,
terrible. Earl Van Best Jr.
what's he weigh?
he-
120 pounds?
He's small guy. Brought forward by his son, Gary Stewart, who wrote a book, and it's literally the Zodiac part of Gary's book. I think that from what a lot of people say that have read the book, that the part about him being estranged from his father and the relationship with his mother, and I can't remember. There's some other story he was involved in, like the candy lane aisle or something. I don't remember,
Yeah.
but it's not Zodiac related. But that part of it I heard of the book is actually, fairly entertaining. He had a co-writer, Susan Mustafa, but the Zodiac part of it is literally just cut and paste to make him look like the Zodiac, just to sell more books or make it more interesting, because his bona fides for Zodiac are terrible.
And she turned on him, didn't she? Because
She did.
Yeah,
she did. You know this
fact-
case, man. I'm impressed you knew that.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah,
Keith's
He turned on him.
Hey, Drew, Keith's legit was Zodiac.
not
Yeah.
not like you are, but I
Yeah.
remember she was like going. Basically, this guy lied.
Yeah.
Wow.
She turned on him.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
And the funny thing is on the documentary, is that towards the end of the documentary, I wouldn't even released it if that was the case. So
Terrible. And you remember what happened when he first came out? Was you can always count on Voight for one thing. He'll attack any suspect that comes out other than
oh
Guy.
yeah,
And he did, and I give him credit for that. So one of the first things that Gary Stewart put forward for his father, Earl Van Best Jr., for being the Zodiac was his handwriting. And he said, "Look at this. This is my father's handwriting from his marriage certificate." Well, I don't know if it was Voight that ran it down or somebody did, and the handwriting was pretty good match.
right.
But they found out it was the minister's handwriting, and the minister was like in Louisiana. So now is the minister the Zodiac? I mean, so he starts out with that pie in his face.
How embarrassing, man! How
Oh
embarrassing.
man, it turned out to be the minister. I mean, how embarrassing.
Mhm.
And I don't know how he could show his face after that, but Gary Stewart believes I solved this deal, right?
Yeah.
And it just gets worse from there. So we know the Zodiac was influenced by the Gilbert Sullivan opera, The Mikado. So
Uh-huh.
he says that his father, Earl Van Best Jr., was in Japan during the military or some nonsense. And he said, well, obviously that's where he learned about the Mikado. What this ding dong didn't know is the Mikado was banned in Japan. I mean, it was an English play by Englishmen. They saw it as an insult to them. So it was banned for like 40 years in Japan. I mean, you were not
Right.
supposed to put on the Mikado over there at all. I mean, it was only like, I think 15 years ago that they allowed it to start airing,
Wow.
productions of it again. Because for so long, like during World War II and the 50s, it was strictly banned in Japan. But that's where Daddy saw it.
Yeah.
It's a downhill mess.
Yep. So let's get the real suspect up here. I hope that is Don Chaney. Please tell me that's the.
Oh, that's him.
Okay.
That's him.
Okay. Yeah, because I was trying to find pictures. You have one. Oh, that one I was going to ask you that's in his book where he's got kind of long hair and a mustache. What was that, like circa 75 or something?
Yes.
Or
Yes. And the ones you're looking at are 65.
oh, these are perfect. Because and also, Drew, if you think about it, if you're seeing him at night and that bit of hair that he has comes down, would look like a widow's peak, and that's
It
one
is
of
a
the
widow's
things.
peak. He
Yeah,
still has the widow's peak when you see him. His name was Arthur Lee Allen.
right.
Absolutely had a widow's peak, and that's what Officer Donald Falk saw at the Presidio. And what other term did Donald Falk use? Who most people believe did see the Zodiac. I think he kind of waffled on if he spoke to the Zodiac or not. I think someone once told me that was out of fear, but the general consensus is that that Officer Donald Falk did see the Zodiac killer at the Presidio. He walked by him, and of course they were looking, because of the dispatch screw up, they were looking for a black male, not a white
Right.
male. And
Right.
they drove by this suspicious guy when they were still looking for a black male, because that's an odd screw up, isn't it? But it happened.
Yeah.
But two words that Donald Falk used to describe the man he saw that night: barrel chested.
Yeah.
So put that back on, and from 65, barrel chested. See that?
Yeah. He's,
Barrel chested. Like, a good example I point out is you know who Alex Jones is?
yeah.
That's barrel chested. Not
Yeah,
just stocky,
absolutely.
but barrel chested, like Popeye, like all up, naturally, just a natural stockiness, barrel chested. And that's
Right.
those are the words that he used at the time, barrel chested.
Yeah, and Don Fowles, didn't he? I heard he waited like 6 weeks. Was that to report that?
Yeah.
Was that because he was embarrassed, or
He
or
was
did he make
scared.
it
Someone
up?
told me
Or-
he was scared, but most people, Eric Zelms was his partner that night, and he kind of cast a little bit of doubt on it. But as the years go by, I think everyone kind of coalesced around the fact that he did see the Zodiac, like he couldn't have missed him. And when the sketch was already done before Donald Falk saw it, it was already based on mainly, like I said, Lindsay Robbins, the oldest of the kids. And he saw it and he said, that looks pretty much like the guy I saw. He just kind of agreed with it. They didn't touch it up or anything based on what he said. He just kind of, yeah, that pretty much looks like him.
And the part where they say they saw him walk to an apartment on Jackson Street or something? Is that correct? Because
Yeah, it's
I
not
get
really
confused.
clear.
Yeah, because I get confused. I hear he went into the Presidio, the park, and then I heard no, he went to an apartment building.
No one ever saw him walk in. They thought maybe they saw him walk up to the step, maybe acting like he lived there.
Acting like he's
That's
going to
where-
go
Right.
in.
That's where a couple of suspects pop up. Michelle Cavalli pops up. Mike Rodelli suspect because of that, because he lived in the area. He was walking his dog that night. The dog had to go take a leak, and the guy becomes a Zodiac suspect, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, that's kind of how that goes. But no one ever saw him go in the building, and that's all really sketchy. Where he went. I mean, he walked into the Presidio. He walked into the park where it was dark. I mean, really dark. So they know he walked somewhere into the park.
Gotcha. And then how was he there?
That was from the interview with Tom Voight. And wow, what was that? That was 2001, I think. So, and he died in 2009. So 65-ish, 64, 65.
Okay. Yeah. Because I was thinking and also he looks, because I was thinking, why didn't Fowlkes, when he watched the little documentary they made, go, hey, that's the guy I saw.
Yeah,
But of course he looks nothing like he did.
Nothing, and he probably doesn't
Nothing.
sound like he did either.
Right.
Which I point out to people all the time. And one example I give is like, go watch the early news interviews of Brian Hartnell in his hospital bed and listen to his voice, and then go listen to him in This Is the Zodiac Speaking documentary. You'd never be able to tell it's the same guy.
Right.
And this is kind of cool. Something you found out where it says Paradise, and you found out this guy had a relative, right? That was named Paradise, was spelled this way.
To me, that's a coup de grace. That name. And actually, I didn't come up with the concept of that maybe being a surname, because we know the Zodiac like to misspell words for comedic effect. And isn't that weird that Arthur Lee Allen was known to do that way before the crimes? So to do that, all you had to do is know him if you were going to cast a little doubt over his way. But actually on Reddit, which isn't the top place to go for anything, but once in a while you'll find something useful. And someone threw out there, hey, did anyone ever consider that the word that Zodiac loves to use, Paradise, could be a surname? And I thought, wow, that's kind of a crazy concept. And I found a couple, somebody that Don Cheney would have known, and it was Paradise, but it was spelled the regular way, Paradise, Paradise.
Yeah.
And I have a genealogy background. That's what all my research is based on. It's just stuff I learned as a real avid genealogist. And I was looking at Don Cheney's mother's genealogy, and I saw that his grandfather on his mother's side had a first cousin named Mary Ingersoll Paradise. She married a famous architect named Frank Paradise, and the spelling was Paradice.
Whoa.
I can't tell you how rare of a surname that is.
Yeah,
There was only one
seriously.
family in America with that surname, and they mostly lived in Denver area. The name comes from England. The family, a few of them migrated from England over to Canada down to Denver, Colorado in like the mid 50s or so. So anyone with that name branches off from that single family. I can tell you this. And all the San Francisco, San Francisco is a pretty populated town back in 69 during the Zodiac crimes. There's not one last name spelled that way in the entire city of San Francisco phone book for any year, not just Zodiac crimes, any year. That's how rare that name is. And that's Don Cheney's first cousin twice removed in genealogical terms, meaning his mother's father's first cousin is Mary Martha Ingersoll Paradise, and had that name through his whole life. And she was very wealthy too. So that's definitely somebody, if he didn't know in person, that he probably heard about her. So that's stunning. Circumstantial, yes, but stunning. I mean, the odds of that are insane. Given the rarity of the
he
name.
could have been just sending little clues like, guys, if you look hard enough, you know what I mean?
He did.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
When did the first three letters he wrote in July of 1969, he was cruising around looking for victims on Fry night, F-R-Y, not Friday night, shortened it. He called it Fry night, F-R-Y. His mother's maiden name is Fryer.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's crazy.
Oh, and it just gets better from there.
Keep
Those
going,
are
buddy.
just starters.
Keep going, buddy.
Those are starters for him.
Yeah.
He went to the same tiny college as a guy named Paul Avery.
Yeah, San Francisco.
Played by Robert Downey Jr. in the movie.
Yeah.
They went to Bakersfield College in 1952 and 1953 together. And you're talking like a little tiny junior college. I mean, freshmen and sophomores only. The entire male population of the freshman class was about 150 guys.
Wow.
And they're in the freshman class together. Think he might have known him?
Probably
Paul Avery ran for class president in 1952.
Yeah,
so
he would have had
posters out.
Yeah,
and he was also the next year in the spring of 53. He was the director of student assemblies, meaning they would have an assembly in the auditorium every Friday where they would bring in and actually Bakersfield Junior College at the time was so small it shared the campus with Bakersfield High School. Where Don Cheney went to high school. So the college was far smaller than the high school. They shared the facilities. They shared the auditorium. So Paul Avery would get up in front of this group every Friday and say, hey, today we got some guys in from LA. We have singers and dancers and this kind of entertainment and blah, blah, blah. So think Don Cheney wasn't aware of who Paul Avery was in 1952 and 3? You bet he was.
Exactly.
Guess what play is done by the college in the spring of 53?
The Mikado.
The Mikado. Guess whose buddies rounded out the cast? Paul Avery was personal friends with everybody in the class, including his high school buddy, a guy named Jim Crutcher. Paul Avery didn't go to Bakersfield High School. He went to Burroughs High School, but his best friend was Jim Crutcher, who played Yankee Poo, one of the top roles in the Mikado. And then Paul Avery was buddies with the whole, the acting crowd there at Bakersfield Junior College. So it's literally impossible that Don Cheney didn't know who he was in 52. That's stunning.
And kind of funny that the card says secret pal.
Your secret pal. I know who you are.
Yeah.
I've known you since 52, my friend. I've known who you are since 52.
Okay. This is a question I have for you. This is the letter to Tom from Don.
After they had an interview together. Yep.
Right. Okay. Is this grafting paper?
That is a graph paper that would be used by someone that knew about mechanical engineering.
Right. So there's a clue there.
There's plenty of clues there.
Yeah. And do you suppose maybe he did? Because if you notice, let me pull up a picture of Zodiac's writing. Zodiac tend to go to the right, downward to the right. And do you think it's possible Cheney used this because he wanted to go make sure everything was straight in his natural handwriting? Maybe,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
if you look at the word syringe, if that's not Zodiac, I mean the space between the Y and the R, and then you've got the Zodiac's R's always look like V's to me, and that looks like a V, and you can see it's just
It's stunning when you pick
screams.
that apart. And an unfortunate thing, we don't have more writing samples. Kudos to Tom for getting that.
Yeah.
And it's you fight like hell to get some writing samples, which would be gold. But just in this, look how victim is misspelled.
Yeah, the EM. And
Zodiac misspelled victim, not the same way, but misspelled victim. I mean, you got clues all over this. It's just crazy when you line them up. I mean, to some of the letters, like one of them I sent you, I can't remember what letter that was. I think it was a D or something. That is stunning.
yeah.
Yeah, and just the tone of it. You know, it's got Zodiac all over it.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
What was that Cheney letter? What was that in regards to?
Oh, what Tom had written, I guess, Drew probably knows better than me. I guess Tom had made contact with him, interviewed him as well, and asked a question, and he wrote this letter back to him.
Oh, got it.
Okay,
Which was stealth.
And if this is a real Zodiac letter here, and you can see like there's spaces between, it's almost like he was trying to sound out a word, almost like in syllables, like he put spaces between something.
Like July.
Yeah.
J.
Yeah. Like he was trying to sound it out.
Now, what was that first letter in reference to? That was.
It was about that. This letter is in reference. This is after these two guys met in person. And Tom.
Okay, I'm a dialysis patient, so I'm looking at that really.
Yeah, they're talking about. I think this was referring to the neighbor of Arthur Lee Allen, because this is in reference to Arthur Lee Allen. That's the reason Don met with Tom.
Somebody killed him with insulin.
Huh?
Somebody killed him with insulin, putting it in the tubing.
That's what that's what Don says. That's what Don says. I don't know if that was ever proven or not. But of course, this is all under the context of we're talking about Arthur Lee Allen. That's why Don agreed to meet with Tom Voigt, because Don's the guy who has all the answers. He's helping you solve the case.
Yeah,
because he brought forward his buddy. Hey, I'm going to solve Zodiac for you. It's my buddy. Yeah. And the guy he brought forward is so interesting that people that today is still the top suspect.
Right.
Crazy.
Yeah, and people
he inserted himself in the case.
Well, to me, it's ridiculous because he had a receding hairline. Mike Majo said this guy had kind of a full head of hair. The Fouke said he had a full head of hair. He was
bald. Was bald.
Yeah.
Hey, if you've noticed, I turn off my light because when I turn it on, I look like the Zodiac sketches.
You are from there.
Yeah, you are.
That's true.
You're just
what size shoe do you wear?
Yeah.
I wear 11, but I would have been
your shoe.
The first murders, I would have been 4 or 5. So,
all right, you told on yourself.
Yeah.
Well, I was also living in Seattle during the Green River murders. So,
damn, maybe
you and Gary were riding shotgun.
Yeah.
maybe I'm a murderer.
You're not just a time traveler. It sounds like.
I was able to fool a lot of other people in the murder realm.
Right. So speaking of, what was Don Cheney's shoe size? Do we know?
I don't know, but I'd love to know, because if he wore, a wing walker, what Donald Fouke called the shoe, and Donald Fouke said he remembered the shoes of the guy he saw.
Engineering.
Donald Fouke called the shoe an engineering type boot that he saw. Well, Don Cheney was a mechanical engineer by trade. He was also in the Air Force for 2 years, so he could buy things on bases. He was in the Air Force for 2 years in Harlingen, Texas, and lots of goodies there because he had electronics training. Right. He had celestial navigation training. Very interesting to have that, because you have the compass rose over Mount Diablo. You have radians, math, engineering, mechanical. It's there's so much there. It's ridiculous.
What do you think about Robert Domingo and Linda Edwards? Do you think Don had anything to do with that as well?
I don't know. I think if there's any non-canonical Zodiac attributed crime, it would be Edwards and Dominguez. I think that has the strongest possibility of being a Zodiac crime of all the other ones. I mean, the swindles, definitely over Riverside, the Kathleen Johns incident. I don't know where I am on that. It's all over the place. But I say that Dominguez and Edwards, I'd say that's got the best possibility. If you listen to the Sea Waters over there on their other YouTube channel, they'll tell you they were waiting in the car when Arthur Lee Allen killed those two, and he got in the car all bloodied up. If you believe them,
Oh God,
that's kind of jumping the shark.
Yeah, the Kathleen Johns. I think the only thing that kind of gets me is someone did set her car on fire.
Someone did set the car on fire. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah. So you don't think she was actually though picked up by the Zodiac, or he didn't really abduct anybody though, did he? That wasn't his deal.
No, he had her in the car. She had her young daughter with her. She was pregnant at the time. They took her into the station and she saw the Zodiac poster, and then she said, "Yeah, that's him. That's the guy." And then she later said it was Larry Kane, because I guess Harvey Hines probably bought her a donut somewhere, and she said, yeah, it was pathetic. Like I mentioned, George Bauer interviewed her, who had the case last, and he said, "Man, this lady was just starving for attention. She was with her boyfriend at the time, and her credibility is terrible." I'd like Kathleen Johns to be legitimate because she said that in the car when she was picked up by the alleged Zodiac, that there was children's clothes in the car that to her looked around like 8 or 9 years old. Well, Don had kids. Right. None of the other suspects did. I can't think, other than Earl Van Best Jr. having Gary Stewart. I can't really think of any other suspect that Larry King didn't have kids. Sullivan, no kids. Geit, no kids. Cheney had kids, and she said she recalled that there was kids' clothes in the car that, she was a mother. She estimated it to be around for an 8 or 9 year old.
Right. I mean, it's possible it could have happened. I mean, even let's say it was Dawn. I mean, it was dark. She pointed out Larry Kane, but still everybody, like you said, back then had the haircut, the same haircut, the glasses, that kind of thing. But I don't see it being Zodiac's MO as far as he really didn't abduct people. I could see him maybe just shooting her in the car and then leaving.
Yeah. He didn't make contact with him. He wasn't a rapist like Golden State, which is how they got him, of course, because he was a rapist. They had, plenty of DNA to work with, unlike this case. But, it is a circumstantial case. But when you take the circumstantial evidence with Arthur Lee Allen, which is strong, because that's why he's still the top suspect. Yeah, even though his DNA was ruled out, even though his fingerprints didn't match, even though his handwriting really didn't match, he's still called the prime suspect. Well, why? Because not just because of Graysmith and a movie that's already been out for a long time now. It's because the remaining circumstantial evidence is so strong.
Yeah.
And then when you put Don's with it, with Avery, the Mikado, Paradise, the knowledge that Don had, and you combine that with what all you had to do is know Arthur Lee Allen to know, one, that he misspelled words for comedic effect, just like the Zodiac did. That's all you had to know. Trigger Mech shows up in the letters. Well, his Arthur Lee Allen's sister-in-law, Karen Allen, said he always used the word Trigger Mech. That's rare. There's a lot of good stuff for Arthur Lee Allen, but there's also bad stuff. Completely bald. He was predominantly left-handed. The attacker, Nick Berryessa, was right-handed. Arthur Lee Allen was not mathematically inclined. That's people that like him as a suspect don't like to face that. He did not have the ability to construct the 340, in my opinion. It took 3 really smart guys, a computer program, luck, and 51 years to break that cipher. Right. Arthur Lee Allen did not have the ability to construct that, in my opinion.
Yeah, wasn't it like a cipher inside a cipher or something crazy?
There's hidden stuff in there, but it was basically, your run-of-the-mill Zodiac taunting, but everybody accepts the solution. Dave Aranchek, super smart guy. Sam Blake, Jarl Van Eck, from Belgium, real smart guys, and the Zodiac made a couple mistakes making it, so that made it a little tougher to break. And Arthur Lee Allen was not mathematically inclined. That's why he didn't pursue something like mechanical engineering. He was a school teacher. He was a junior chemist for a while, but he was not mathematically inclined. He just wasn't. And if you look at it, one thing that I go as hard as I can go on this fact: the Zodiac killer, and you know who I think it is, could draft. He could draft, meaning with his hand, using what they call a nib, and where you're drawing thinner lines and thicker lines. And this is so apparent. Actually, I get this all the time. I mean, from graphic artists, like this guy could do drafting. I mean, that and on a light table, he's constructing this stuff on an engineering light table, or what they call a light box, laying stuff over that. Why are the ciphers so neat? Why are the little symbols in the cipher so neat? Because he's using graph paper. We saw that earlier tonight, didn't we?
Yes, we
And
did.
he lays a regular piece of paper over the graph paper. So then your little symbols are all neat.
Right.
He was a draftsman.
Right. And then you said there had been like different type of mechanical pens to come up with a thinner stroke than the thicker strokes, or
that's
whatever.
how you did mechanical engineering. I mean, because the AutoCAD didn't exist then. Now that all that stuff's done in AutoCAD on the computer, but then it was all done by hand. You had to learn how to do thicker and thinner strokes and draw little symbols. Don Cheney was specifically a pipe stress analyst. He worked for Fluor for a while. He did a lot of job hopping, but he was trained as a mechanical engineer, went to Cal Poly Pomona, where he met his wife, and he was mathematical. He's also had a lot of interest in literature, but very mathematical. There's mechanical engineering, the bus bomb diagram. This is a mechanical engineer. It's just obvious. This is a draftsman. This is a light table. This is someone that's used to doing tedious work, very tedious, writing out those symbols, decoding. Disguising them in code. Arthur Lee Allen wasn't sitting down there with his Playboys. He just wasn't. It's just not what this guy was. Ross Sullivan, Larry Kane, they don't have that kind of mindset. They don't. They wouldn't know a radian if it bit them on the ass. It just they wouldn't know what a radian was.
Right.
The lay person, I don't care what people say, back then, only about 1 out of 100 people would have even known what a radian was, much less be able to construct a 340.
Okay, so this is something I hope you can clear up for me, because I'm so confused with this whole DNA thing. Okay, so the DNA they got back, I guess, 92, and now we're finding out actually it was from the top of the stamp and it wasn't from the part where you lick, and so it's therefore not really the Zodiac's DNA.
It could have been anybody that touched it. It came from the outside of the stamp on a letter that was sent, I think, in it was after the Stein killing. I think it was late September '69. It was in the possession of the San Francisco Police Department DNA lab, which was a hot mess. There's a lot of people that got convicted that shouldn't have been on. It was just shocking the way that their evidence was stored. There was many articles about it. There was a TV show, I think it was on Primetime Live, about it, and they kind of led people to believe they had good Zodiac DNA, but they really didn't. They determined that it came from the outside of the stamp, so it was touch DNA. Anybody that handled that letter, it could have belonged to that DNA. I mean, anyone that just touched it, and it was from a male, and that's all they know. It's a real weak sample.
Yeah, for me, that's almost crazy that you've got scientists that are willing to say this is the Zodiac's DNA.
Yeah, 4 out of 9 markers, so it wasn't even anything you could do a genealogy trace on. It's too weak. So lately, Tom Voigt came out with this announcement that they've found some more DNA off of a letter. I don't know if that's from under a stamp or under the letter flap, but they said that they feel good about where it came from, but that it couldn't have been the Zodiac.
So a female?
People are speculating. Is it a female? Is it an African American? Or somebody suggested a dog? I mean, I don't know. Nothing else has come out on that, but it'd be interesting to see if it was someone,
what if it was Don Cheney's wife?
Yeah.
It
could have been. Knows? Yeah. They don't, I mean, that's all he said was, that was taken from a good place, but it could not have been the Zodiac. Well, how? I mean, it had to be.
Is he going to give any more specifics about this? Or
he told someone I know that he would know more at the end of this month. So, I don't think he would have just totally made it up out of nowhere. I think he's got sources. I mean, he's been doing this forever. So hopefully it's true, because when we talk about people licking stamps, I've only heard one person ever talk about licking stamps in this case. Yeah. And you know who that is.
Right.
And the most interesting thing about that is, and I think of anything I've ever discovered in this case, and you can tell I got a pretty good handle on it, right? Yeah. Suspects, everything. And, I made the Paul Avery find, Paradise, all that stuff. But I think the best thing that just simple me thinking was, Don says on that his name was Arthur Lee Allen, that he licked Arthur Lee Allen stamps. Well, in that he mentions again, this all happened to him New Year's Day of '69. Well, what's important is that as of New Year's Day, 1969, no Zodiac letter had been mailed yet. The first letters don't show up till the end of July of 69. So is he saying he licked stamps for letters that weren't even written yet? Think about that. No one ever catches that because the letters reference Blue Rock Springs attack on July 4th, 69. So was Arthur Lee Allen getting pre-made envelopes on New Year's Day, 69? It just shows you how preposterous it is. He's worried his DNA is going to show up. And by his own admission, he said, I never saw Arthur Lee Allen again after that day. Okay, Don, we're giving you New Year's Day 69 now. And he says, clearly, I never talked to him again. We never talked by telephone again. He could have found me if he wanted me. I never saw the man again after New Year's Day 69. But yet he's talking about licking stamps for letters that the first Zodiac letters don't even show up till the end of July 69. We're talking 7 months later.
Wow. Okay,
lying.
That's compelling evidence, man.
He's lying.
Okay, so have they analyzed Don's handwriting as to the?
Well, when Voight got that letter, he was alarmed by it. When Tom Voight got that letter, he was so alarmed by the similarities in the writing, he told the police about it, and that's what led to Don Chaney supposedly doing a voluntary DNA sample. But if he did that, he was just. But you know why he did that? And people ask, well, why would he just do that if he was guilty and he's worried his DNA is going to show up? Well, he knows he can't get around it at that point. Yeah. If you don't give the DNA, the guilt's going to be on you, right?
Yeah.
And then he's already got this pre-baked. I licked Allen stamps for him, so I'm covered.
Right. Yeah.
It's brilliant, really. It's stupid, but it's brilliant at the same time.
Yeah. God.
Think about it. It all goes back to licking stamps. He's worried his DNA is going to show up. There's no way around it. And remember, he failed. The first time they polygraphed him, he failed. There's no other way to look at it. He can call it inconclusive, but he failed. When George Boward had the case, they flew to where Don was living at the time in Benton City, Washington. They arranged for him to take a polygraph because that's how suspicious they were of him too. They were like, wait, I believe him about Arthur Lee Allen, but he seems to know a little more. Well, if he knows a little more, what is that? So they were suspicious of him. They searched his house in Benton City, didn't find anything, but gave him a polygraph. They took him to Tacoma, Washington to do the polygraph test, and he did not pass it. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. Let me rewind a little bit. When this first test was set up for Chaney to take in Tacoma, he got hammered drunk the day before. Hammered drunk, knowing he was going to take a polygraph in the Zodiac crimes.
Wow.
The next day, he got hammered drunk so bad that he was so hungover the day that the test was going to be held that they had to cancel it. True.
Oh my God.
When the test was rescheduled, he took it again and it was inconclusive.
Wow.
Think he's hiding something?
Yeah. That's crazy. Is Don Chaney's wife still alive?
No, she died about a year and a half ago. He was estranged from his family. They moved to Connecticut. He stayed on the West Coast, Benton City, Washington. They moved to Connecticut. It's pretty estranged from his family. It's real sad. I mean, I feel bad about it. I'm not going to confront his family. I know his daughter's out there. I know his daughter watches my work, and I'm sorry I didn't put out his name was Arthur Lee Allen. Don did insert himself into this case, and the problem with it is that he did not tell the truth, and we know that he was not totally honest. And another part of it is he didn't even come forward about this story about Arthur Lee Allen until July of 1971. Well, he said this all happened on New Year's Day, July 69. Why does he wait a year and a half to come forward in a murder case?
Yeah. Because he did it.
Or he's a part of it.
Yeah, it's just glaring. And then when you get into things, the knowledge you'd have to pull this off, the size, the body type, celestial navigation, electronics training, drafting, mechanical engineering, it's just all there. You knew Paul Avery in 52. Now it's your secret pal. There's Paradise. I can't tell you how rare that name is. I can't tell you. It's stunningly rare. And for that to be his grandfather's first cousin, this isn't like a third cousin or way out there like you'd never hear about him. This is his grandfather's first cousin who got a huge inheritance. She was married to a wealthy guy. He was an architect in Pocatello, Idaho, named Frank Paradise, who did really well. He had a lot of fame in his own right, but she inherited a ton of money from her uncle named Colonel Ingersoll. who had a huge estate when he died. She was one of 2 executrixes of that will. So she was a very would have been by far his wealthiest relative. Think he didn't know the name?
Wow. So I mean, it's almost like he was sending clues the whole time.
Mhm.
Friar,
Yeah.
Friday Night, Paradise. We go to Tim Holt. You know, I mentioned Tim Holt earlier. This was Tahoe 27's find.
Yeah.
By knife, by rope. You see it like
Yep.
when you had this Halloween card up there. He used it like Brian Hartnell's car door. You know, it's like trying like a Michael Cole's theory. Like he wanted to do these different crimes with different instruments of death, like by gun. You're dead because there's a Tim Holt, a book. It's a comic book about a real actor, a cowboy actor named Tim Holt. He's a real guy. Worked for RKO Pictures, but they did comic books on Tim Holt. And there's a lady on the front of one of them that she's spinning what they call the death wheel, and the wheel will stop. It'll say like death by knife, death by rope, death by gun. And, you know, Tahoe found that like, this is probably where he's getting this stuff from, you know, this Tim Holt comic book. Well, guess who Tim Holt went to go visit a high school back in 1949 to speak to the Boy Scouts. Guess what high school it was? And guess who was in the Boy Scouts?
Oh my God.
I can't make this up.
Are you serious?
Bakersfield High School Boy Scouts. He was a Boy Scout and he went to Bakersfield High in 49, probably there. I mean, you had Tim Holt in Bakersfield. You had Red Ryder in their at their movie theater. The Red Ryder would come out in costume and introduce the plays. This is the Zodiac was born and raised in Bakersfield, California. There's so many clues in Bakersfield. It would stun you.
That's insane.
Heavy, man.
So what about the palm print the partial palm print they have from the letter? Did they check Cheney's palm print against that, or? You
know, they tested his. They say that they checked his fingerprints. You know, I don't know if they checked his palm print or not. You're talking about the Exorcist letter that they found that on, and that's considered to be the last confirmed piece of Zodiac evidence. I never heard if he was, you know, they checked his palm against that or what, or how hard they even looked at him. I mean, it was said that they tested his DNA, yet when you watch, his name was Arthur Lee Allen. George Bauer doesn't even seem to know if they tested his DNA. So it's just really weird. It's all kind of gray as far as what was done exactly, because in that video, he says that they did take Cheney's fingerprints and they did take handwriting samples, but he does not recall if they did any DNA. So it's just really muddy.
Yeah, the whole DNA thing we need a good DNA sample.
Mm-hmm.
And that's,
surely
we might not have it unless whatever Tom Voigt's talking about leads to somebody's relative or dog. I mean,
yeah.
And that's a hard process. I mean, even if you have a good sample, you have to. I mean, what if you still have to trace them down like the Golden State? That probably took.
And in the 60s, they weren't collecting DNA samples, or the early 70s. They weren't thinking about those things.
They weren't thinking about it. But when you think about Don, why would he even say that? Why would he even say that I licked his stamps? There's no reason to do that.
When did he say that? Did he say it after the DNA?
He said it when he heard that they were going to test Allen's.
When was that? What year?
That was about 91. Allen died in 92.
Yeah, see, they were starting
in 91.
DNA testing back then.
And he knew that they were testing Allen's. Actually, Allen had already died, I think, when they officially tested Allen, because they for some reason they took a sample from his brain, and Allen died in 92. So it could have been after Allen died. I might be wrong. It could have been 92, actually, because I know Allen was dead then, and I know they didn't test Allen until afterwards.
Well, what I'm saying is they were starting to do DNA, and that's why he was.
Oh yeah.
saying it.
Yeah, you didn't hear about it. That's true. In 91, 92, it wasn't, as known as it is now. It was probably really.
They were just starting about that time.
They were just starting. So I think he panicked. And had to come up with something. And they tried to spread.
Why in the world would you say that?
Well, I licked his stamps. And like I said, you're talking about letters that haven't been written yet.
Right.
Why would you do it? I don't understand. This guy's not out of his mind. He's not crazy.
Now let's
why would he do that? Why would he make that statement?
Well, because he had to, because he wasn't thinking about it back in the 60s and 70s when he was.
Now he's scared. Yeah,
he had to make up.
He's worried it's going to show up.
Yeah, right. And that's what you said. Yeah.
And then when the Zodiac said that you're never going to find my fingerprints. I used a model airplane glue on my fingertips, and maybe he's telling the truth. But one thing about the 4 canonical Zodiac crimes is none of the fingerprints. They got some bloody fingerprints from Paul Stein's cab. They got some off the payphone in Napa after Lake Berryessa. There was a phone call. There was one after Blue Rock Springs too, but they got fingerprints from Napa, I know, and from some latent fingerprints from Paul Stein's cab. None of the and they're all partials, by the way, that I understand, but none of those even match another crime. It's not like we know that the ones from Paul Stein's cab match the Napa payphone. They don't. They don't even have good enough samples to say that conclusively. It's just believed that it must have been the Zodiac killer for these 4 crimes.
Wow. So why did Arthur Lee, or I guess I call him Lee, but when Don's making all these allegations towards him, is he trying to defend himself? Is he saying, hey, Don doesn't know what he's talking about? What's going on there?
There's only one thing ever written about that, and I can't even remember exactly where. And he finally finds out where these accusations are coming from, and they tell him that it's your friend, your old friend Don Chaney. And he said something about, I'm paraphrasing, but it was something along the lines of, "Oh, he's a nice guy." It wasn't like, "Oh, he's a liar. He's part of it," or anything like that. Nothing.
Yeah, because if someone's accusing you of being a Zodiac, I'd be furious. You would just be going, this guy's out of his freaking mind. And all the interviews I've seen of Lee Allen, he never talked bad about Chaney, really.
Never talked bad about him. And remember, Allen's a convicted child molester at this point.
Yes.
He got convicted of 1. He went to prison for 1. There's 2 incidents where they know he did, but 1 he wound up going to Atascadero, which was it was a hospital, but it was same like prison/hospital where he went for it. But one thing I hear about all the time is like, okay, if it was Don, why would he come forward and bring Allen forward when Allen can just say, "Hey, you did it with me," or "No, it's you. You did most of it," or "I had a small part and it was all you." Because think about that. He's just beating him to the punch, really. Because Allen's just going to wait and see what develops. Because it's like double jeopardy. What's he going to do? I mean, Chaney has more credibility, so what's going to happen? I mean, and I truly believe this. I don't think Don Chaney wanted Allen to go down for the crimes, because if he did, he could have planted something there. He could have kept a weapon from there. That's probably all it would have taken to get. There was so much suspicion on Allen. Just finding one of the weapons at his house probably would have been enough.
Yeah,
I don't think Chaney wanted Allen to go
shirt down. Or something in the closet.
Piece of Stein's bloody shirt. If he had it left and didn't get rid of it. Yeah, I don't think he wanted him to go all the way down for it. I think he just wanted a vehicle to insert himself back into the case, kind of like BTK did, which wound up getting him caught. I mean, BTK was taking a victory lap and he got busted. So I think it was just to insert himself into what he created. Like I say, why did he wait till July of 71 to come back with these recollections from New Year's Day 69? Oh, it just hit me that you were talking about killing people. It's preposterous. Zodiac was everywhere back then. It was even in LA. I mean, LA Times, of course, they were talking about the Zodiac and print articles. And Don says, well, it was that part about picking off the kiddies as they come bouncing off the bus that he finally saw in the news that prompted him to come forward. And of course, he doesn't go directly to the police. He goes to his best friend at the time, his boss too, Santo Panzarella, who was running a really successful company called Science Dynamics, which makes you wonder why you would stop working for a friend who was literally making millions.
Yeah.
Just another weird insight into the guy, but it's just so much there that you can just brushing the top of it.
So did Don go to the police, or was it the friend that said, "Hey, Don told me this stuff"?
They went together. Don went.
Oh, really?
Okay. Yeah, they went together because Don was working for Sandy at the time. He went by Sandy. His name's Santo, but he went by Sandy. They were working together in Manhattan Beach, California. Don was like a manager working for his friend. And, so Sandy knew Arthur Lee Allen too from going to Cal Poly Pomona. That's how they all met. That's how they met Ron Allen, Arthur Lee Allen's younger brother. That's how all these guys meet. They meet going to college at Cal Poly Pomona, and they all live together. And they met Ron Allen first, and then Arthur Lee Allen comes around because his little brother's living with these guys. So that's how they all meet. And then, so Chaney's working for Sandy Panzarella, and he finally decides. So according to Chaney, he's living in Pomona, which is close to Riverside, by the way, but in the greater Los Angeles area. And Chaney supposedly sees this thing that reminds him that his buddy was talking about killing people a year and a half earlier and picking off kiddies. And then he sees this on the news or something, or in the newspaper. Actually, he read it in the newspaper when he was working at, or something just jarred his memory. So he goes to the Pomona Police Department and says, hey, my friend was telling me back in 69 that he was going to call himself Zodiac. He was going to write letters to the editors. He was going to go to lovers' lanes and murder people. And then he said that the Pomona police just tuned him out. So he goes to his friend Sandy Panzarella, who knew Arthur Lee Allen, not as well as Don did, but he did know him as well from college, from knowing Ron Allen. Didn't know him near as well as Don did. So Panzarella finally calls the Manhattan Beach police to come over because he was friends with them and to listen to Don. And then from that, they wound up getting a hold of San Francisco PD, and that's how they got the ball rolling in July of 71.
Gotcha.
God bless.
Okay, and I got a question that is not Don Chaney related, but I've always wondered this. Where did Paul Avery get his tips on Sherry Joe Bates?
That is a great question. That is a darn good question. Okay, it comes from a letter called the Slow Boat to China letter. And
Okay.
we don't, and I don't know how Avery gets this. I think his secret pal sent it to him. I think it's from a letter called the Slow Boat to China, because it's like, if no one can see the relationship between this crime and the Zodiac, well, I'll take a slow boat to China. I'm paraphrasing, but that phrase is in it. That's where it gets its name. Well, the official record says that an informant for Riverside Police, a guy named Phil Sins, was the one that tipped off Avery. And Phil Sins, I think it was Mike Morford that actually talked to Phil Sins before he died. And Phil Sins said, I never sent Paul Avery a letter. I called him. So who's telling the truth?
Yeah.
Did Sins tip this off, or was it the Slow Boat to China letter? I believe it was the letter. And I think that the secret pal sent him the letter.
Wow.
But it's not really known. I mean, all I know is that Sins said that he did not mail a letter to Avery. I think he said he tried to call something like that, but he did not write Avery a letter. It comes from the Slow Boat to China letter.
Oh, hey, I was going to remind you, when 2 podcasts ago where you was on, you said you might have had some breaking news or something. You would announce it on the show. Was it anything good, or what was it?
It's kind of intriguing. The guy that called me doesn't want me to let it out, but he is really into this stuff heavily. And he works with metals, and he does, some drafting stuff. His father-in-law is a mechanical engineer, but he's, he's not a suspect guy, and he's not like, hey, this is more proof it's Don or anything, because he knows my stuff. And he said that, he approached me because he likes my approach to the case. So I thought, hey, that's great. And I'll listen to anybody's theories, or even about other suspects. I don't mind at all. I've, some friends with different suspects. I mean, it's not a big deal, but he believes, and I think he wouldn't mind me giving this part out, is that he believes that he knows the exact constellation that the Zodiac based the Halloween card off of, that matches up with the Zodiac's Halloween card, and also the decoded 340. And he's been doing this a long, long time. And one thing I asked him is, would you had to have had some pretty deep knowledge of the stars to be able to pick this constellation? And he said, absolutely, because this particular one is, was absorbed by another thing or whatever, so it's older, but you had to like really been into this stuff to have known that. I do know that Don Chaney had celestial navigation training, because he trained to be a navigator when he was in the Air Force. So a lot of stuff like that, but it looks pretty convincing. It's, I'm not a cipher guy, and I'm not good with like lining stuff up, but this guy's like a graphic artist. He's a tattoo artist, among other things. But he says it's clear to him this guy was a draftsman. He said it's clear to him that he had celestial knowledge, that he's a draftsman. He said if you fold these things over a certain way, he said he was definitely working with a light box. He said I can demonstrate all of this to you, if I'm in front of you, but he's in another state. So, but it looks pretty compelling.
So have they tried to get DNA? I know they always talk about the stamps, but like where you lick the envelope to seal the envelope. I mean, surely they've checked that, right?
I would think there would be more DNA there. So
yeah, I would too.
Yeah, like this one that Voight's talking about. I think, as I understand, that that may have been from the flap. This person here, I see in the chat, he said Alan had a Zodiac watch on in the presence of the police, and he would not take it off. Alan Perfect Patsy. He's right about that. Arthur Lee Allen, when questioned by the police, would flaunt that Zodiac wristwatch. It was like he was taunting them, you know, like he just seemed to have this feeling of protection for some reason. I can't explain it. Why he felt, you know, that he would taunt them to that level. He'd wear that
Because
watch
he
all
thought he
the
was
time.
smarter than them.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he
Oh,
felt.
absolutely.
That's why he thought. That's why people do things like that. He just thought he was smarter than the cops. So.
Oh yeah, he didn't like him. He didn't like him at
Yeah.
all. He would
He
he
was
said there's two
narcissistic.
kind of liars in the world, fishermen and policemen. And he goes, and not in that order. You know, he'd always say stuff like that. He hated the police.
Did
Perfect
they
guy for that.
in the movie? You know, they showed that great scene, that interrogation scene of Arthur Lee Allen, who's Dave Toschi Armstrong, and you know, he crosses his leg, and then there's that boot, that wing walker. Now, did that really happen? I mean, did
No.
he really? Okay.
No, he was never known. He was never known to even own a pair of wing walkers. Michael Butterfield did a great job at debunking a lot of that stuff that went on in the Zodiac. I mean, Graysmith took a lot of liberties. I mean, he did.
Yeah, he really did.
He talked about this painting party at Darlene Farron's house. The painting party never happened. Never.
Right.
Never happened. Sorry, never. He said that Arthur Lee Allen's family had a meeting to discuss the fact that they all believed he was the Zodiac. That never happened. Ron Allen, Karen Allen totally refuted that. He took a lot of liberties, and Arthur Lee Allen had bad feet. He had gout in one of his feet really bad. So that really hurts him at Lake Berryessa, because that is a long hike from where we know he was, as far as Zodiac was, where Brian Hartnell's Carmen Gia was parked.
Right.
And that was I don't remember the distance. I have it in the book, but a long walk down there where they were, and then a long walk back up the hill.
Right.
And Arthur Allen had bad feet. He wore sneakers because he had gout in his feet. He was not a wing walker. Is not going to be the most comfortable shoe when you have gout.
Yeah, I heard
and you're overweight. And he had trouble with his feet. Everybody that knew him knew it. He had trouble with his feet since probably 63, 64. He wasn't wearing wing walkers, and it's never proven that he ever owned a pair.
Yeah, leather boots is like the last thing you want to wear if you got gout.
Exactly.
Well, I'm thinking.
He was a tennis shoe guy. Don Chaney even admits that. It's funny if you read the transcript that of the interview that Voight did with him, that's on zodiackiller.com. You can see that Don's kind of giving himself away. I mean, he says it's just, he doesn't take all the bait with Allen. They said, you know, Tom asked, "Oh, did you ever see him doing codes or ciphers?" And he says, "No, never seen anything like that." And Tom says, "Did he ever like stuff like the Mikado?" And Don says, "No, but I did. You know, like I liked stuff like that at the time." He's like giving himself away. It's really weird. Like he doesn't want Allen for all. He doesn't want to give Allen all the, you know, the artistry and the creation, and he's like saving some for himself.
Oh.
Right. So it really does sound like, Drew, to me, that these guys were in cahoots a little bit. I mean, Arthur Lee Allen's playing with the police, you know, showing the watch, but knows there's no evidence, you know, for him to get caught. What's the percentage you think that was this just Don Chaney on his own, or is there a high percentage that you think they're both involved in this? I know it's hard to say, but
I think Allen had a decent level of involvement. I think he was mailing the letters for the most part. When you break it down by date, see, Don wasn't even living in the Bay Area for 3 of the canonical crimes. It's one of the things people point against him. Well, God, look how far he'd have to drive. Well, that's definitely what you're going to do when you want the light to be on your friend who lives at 32 Fresno in Vallejo, you know, because with geographic profiling, Allen is ground zero at 32 Fresno. And I think, you know, Don knew that. Don had some friends that lived in Vallejo that Arthur Lee Allen didn't really know. So that would have been convenient for that. But Don Chaney was an avid hunter. He liked to hunt big game. And when you had the decoded 408, you talk about most dangerous animal and hunting, and hunting animals and hunting man. Don was an avid hunter. I mean, hunting season, this guy's gone for days. He slept in a Plains Indian teepee. I mean, you go back to Tim Holt, Cowboys and Indians.
Yeah, I saw
he camped in a Plains Indian teepee.
Yeah, I saw that picture.
Yeah,
it's in your book.
Yeah, Allen was not a hunter. Allen was not. He was not really this hunter guy. He just wasn't. He didn't go on long hunts. He had bad feet. Chaney was the hunter, and you know, Chaney made leather items that his mother's father taught him how to do. He made leather sheaths for knives. Highly adept at knives. He preferred carbon steel. Always sharpening his knives, made beautiful leather sheaths, sewn leather sheaths. You know, they know whoever sewed that costume at Lake Berryessa knew what they were doing. Even Brian Hartnell said, Hartnell said this was not scrawled on with paint. The Zodiac logo, he said it was done with care. And it was also been reported it looked like it was intricately sewn to
Which
the black dicky.
Also a mechanical engineer, somebody that's used to doing something monotonous and
Detailed.
highly specific and detailed, right?
And Don Chaney, I think in your book, you said he sewed, and so that had been probably pretty damn easy for him to make.
He could sew leather all day long.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what his grandfather taught him how to do it. He was adept at it. He could do like design work on the leather. And Brian Hartnell said the sheath looked like it custom made, a foot long sheath. He had the knife on his left hip. He had the gun on his right, indicating a right-handed guy. Because when Zodiac walked up on Brian and Cecilia, he had his gun out with his right hand. Arthur Lee Allen was left-handed. He could write some with his right hand because it was a scourge back in the day to be left-handed, but he was predominantly left-handed. Arthur Lee Allen's not going to be coming after people with a gun in his right hand. It's a killer. He's not going to be wearing a wig under a hood. It's ridiculous. The Arthur Lee Allen fans hate to hear that, but he's a non-starter at Lake Berryessa.
No, I'll tell you another thing, Drew, is some of the Arthur Lee Allen people are so happy about the DNA not being good because they think it throws him back in the game.
And it should. It should.
Well, it should, but he doesn't fit the description whatsoever.
No, he doesn't. He's too heavy for the Presidio by Falk. He doesn't have the math part, and like I said, Lake Berryessa is difficult for him for a lot of reasons. One, bad feet, like I mentioned. Two, predominantly left-handed. It was a right-handed attack. Brian and Cecilia were stabbed with a guy using his right hand to chop on them. He came at them with the gun with his right hand, and he probably scared. Zodiac was probably a little scared when he saw how tall Brian Hartnell was. He's 6'7", and I didn't know I was that tall.
You know what I mean? And that was the thing, is Brian was going to make a play for the gun. Cecilia said no. But if you think about it, if he would have grabbed the gun and took that mask and twisted it a little bit, which would have blindsided it, he could have took the Zodiac, I think.
Oh, I think he could have. I think that at that point that he thought about it and she told him no, I think he would have had the upper hand. I mean, like I said, 6'7", young guy. I think he could have had. I think he would have turned the tables immediately, and that's a shame.
Yeah, what's so crazy to me, Drew, is like this has got to be the luckiest serial killer in the world. I mean, he attacked someone during the daylight hours. Not only that, he's wearing a ridiculous costume. He doesn't know if a boat's going to be coming by.
Nope.
When he's stabbing people, he walks back to the car and decides, well, I think I'll write all these dates on here by knife, by gun. And then he gets and he's in the Presidio area. Cop sees him. He gets away. It's unbelievable. But the risk, I mean, at first I thought whoever this guy was, like I said, I have a little background in psychology. I thought, okay, he's got a brain injury because he's taking these risks that a normal person would not take. They wouldn't just, walk up on a lake that's in the afternoon and start stabbing somebody. But I mean, the risk taking is just unbelievable with this guy.
It's crazy. And Arthur Lee Allen is not, from anyone that ever knew him, we would not consider him to be the luckiest person in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was like the well-meaning screw up, according to his friend Norm Boudreau in that same
you
documentary.
You should put up Mona's question up here.
Guys, I totally apologize. Pam is out, and so I usually have a moderator that sits at this desk over here and does questions, so we're not seeing it. I'll go ahead and put that up there. Says, I wonder if Drew thinks
that's an interesting one.
Yeah, I wonder if Drew thinks there's a possibility that there's at least one or two copycats. Detail of the crimes were leaked to the public, so many knew what was going on.
If the word copycat ever comes up in this case, it is for Lake Berryessa. That's the most, pointed to of the four canonical Zodiac crimes. If anyone, if the word copycat's ever brought up, they always think it's Lake Berryessa, and I don't know why. One thing could be because the Zodiac never mentioned the attack in one of his letters. He didn't. The only way he noted that attack was writing on Brian Hartnell's car door. That's one of the reasons that when people think could be a copycat. Right. And one thing that points against that, though, is he is wearing this cross circle logo. And, and like I said, he walked up to Brian and Cecilia. He never said, I am the Zodiac and any of that. He just said, hey, I just want your money and your car keys, and then proceeds to tie him up and stab him. So he did intend to leave them dead, both of them.
Yeah.
I think if Brian feigned death, he just stopped moving. Cecilia was thrashing around, which I think is why
she got
succumbed to
killed.
her wounds 2 days later. And so I don't see a copycat, and that is going to be the crime that people would say would be the copycat. And if you're copying, why would you use a knife instead of a gun? The first 2 crimes were a gun at Lake Herman Road and at Blue Rock Springs. And so if you're a copycat, why are you using a different weapon?
Because
Could
you're not
be
a
because
very
you didn't
good
want to
one.
hear it go off, but
You're not
Yeah.
a very good copycat.
yeah, I don't see it. I think that the hood meant something to the attacker, and
It was a comic
he
book
planned for them to
character.
die.
He I think he saw the comic books. He created this not a superhero, super villain kind of thing. And I think you're right. I think it was important to him. It was part of that whole character, to put the fear into people and I'm this super villain with this crazy stuff.
Well, he would have had to do that because he wanted that publicity. He really did. He
craved it.
Craved it. So I think you're right. I think you're right, Drew, that he was creating a character that he wanted to.
I think it was. I think it was a character, and I think where he attacked was important. I don't think he knew any of his victims. I don't. I mean, there's so much speculation about Darlene Ferrin and if he knew her, because Darlene Ferrin was married at the time, but she dated a lot of people, including police officers in Vallejo. Bud Gordon was one. That's Jeff Gordon, the NASCAR driver's uncle. I think Bud Gordon was one, a police officer back in the day. Yeah, small world. Jeff Gordon's from Vallejo. And a numerous amount of other people. She worked at a restaurant where she was real flirtatious. But I just think that just is one of those rabbit holes you can't get out of when you go down that one. Did he know or did he not? I don't think he did. I think these were all just opportunities.
Yeah, I heard an interview with Dean Farron. I felt so sorry for the guy because they were asking about Darlene's being promiscuous, and he goes, "Well, I really hope she wasn't."
She was. I mean, I know it's sad, but she just was. I mean,
she was. Yeah,
how she did live her life. I mean, she could have been leading on Mike Migeau. His brother liked her too. Mike Migeau had a twin brother.
Yeah.
And that goes on and on. Her and unfortunately Darlene Ferrin's sisters were just a factory of misinformation, particularly her sister Pam Huckabee.
Oh, she's nuts.
She just said a lot of stuff that was insane and upside down. She picked everybody, including Carrot Top, as being the Zodiac. I mean, it's sad,
I feel so bad for Michael Mageau when she approached him, and was like, "I know you know who killed Darlene, please."
Yeah, I saw that.
That poor guy, and he's probably like, "No, I don't. I would have said something." Hey, here's something interesting I was just thinking about. Okay, let's say the police in San Francisco, they stop him, they catch him with the driver's license. Now, at this time, they didn't know it was a Zodiac killing, so he had just been arrested for the murder of a cab driver at this point. So, do you think Don was smart enough to have gotten rid of all that evidence, or do you think they would have raided the house and found a bunch of stuff? Or because at some point we would never know that was a Zodiac killing.
That's true. I mean, you wouldn't know. Yeah, you wouldn't know unless until he mailed a piece of the shirt.
Right. But it had that not happened. That's what I'm saying. Had that not happened, had he been arrested that night, the Zodiac would be in prison, or Don would be in jail.
Yeah, I mean, the Paul Stein was a weird thing. I mean, it wasn't a couple, it was just a guy by himself, and just and I think he almost got caught, and everybody kind of agrees on that, and that's when he probably just said, "Hey, I came too close to getting caught, but I'm still going to have fun and taunt a little more, and maybe just not commit another crime."
Do you think there's any other murders that was besides? I know Robert Domingos, and if I'm saying that right, wasn't there a taxi cab driver killed in the early 60s?
Yeah, Ray Davis.
Ray Davis, yeah. Do you think that was just a coincidence, or was that a Zodiac killing, you think? Or
I lean against it. It could be. I think after that murder of Ray Davis in Oceanside, California, there was a call in, which is similar to Lake Berryessa and Blue Rock Springs, where there was a phone call after those two crimes. So that's kind of similar. Oceanside's pretty far from the Bay Area. It was a cabbie. It could be.
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing when I was reading your book before I read it, and then I found out where did Don live during 69 in Sonoma? Is that right? Am I saying
No,
that
he
right?
lived in Concord. The last place he lived in the Bay Area was in Concord, which is right by Mount Diablo. And then sometime it's weird. He's not even clear on exactly when he moved. Some accounts said he moved that very New Year's Day of '69 back to Pomona, which is in the Los Angeles area, and others said it was shortly thereafter, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, mid-January, maybe late January. He's not even clear when he moved. So I'm working with another guy on tracking down the exact addresses and when, and it's problematic. The timeline for him is extremely problematic. Right. But his official residence was in Pomona in LA for 3 of the canonical crimes.
Yeah, so that'd been like 6 hours though, right? For
driving.
Yeah,
it's a long haul. I don't doubt it. It's a long haul. But like I said, when you look at the Zodiac crimes, they all happen on weekends or a holiday. Every one of them.
And it'd be easy just to tell.
Blue Rock was July 4th. The other was long holidays. I even had a guy analyze when some of the letters were mailed and was like, man, you could really limit the amount of trips here. But I think Arthur Lee Allen was probably at minimum mailing some of the letters, because if you ever heard of the Pleasanton letter that the Zodiac mailed, Arthur Lee Allen got a speeding ticket in the city of San Francisco on the same day that the Pleasanton letter was mailed by Zodiac. So they're thinking that, hey, he got caught in San Francisco. Now he can't mail it from there. So he drove out to Pleasanton, California, and mailed it that same day.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting.
Well, you sold me.
My God.
I think you solved the case, Drew.
That was incredible.
Very incredible.
You I just like sitting here listening to you. I shouldn't even have been on the show tonight.
That's how I felt. I mean, but it's a good thing. Like I love, because the first time we covered this case, I remember telling you, it's like, it's a bit overwhelming if you're not like really into it, or you don't know much about it. And so I kind of left that first time being like, oh my God.
No, yeah, tonight was a super real treat for me because I have an expert on. I could ask these questions I've always wondered.
Yeah, and very, very concise wording and everything. And you two just nerding out on it was kind of
they did nerd out on it, didn't they?
Yeah, well, I mean,
Thanks,
it's out of all the cases ever, that this one just, like, even Delphi, I'd rather know who the killer was for Zodiac.
Well, the reason why this has never been on Unsolved Mysteries is because they're afraid that it will always just be unsolved.
That's a good question, Drew. Do you think this thing is ever going to decisively be solved? I know they're saying it's going to have to be DNA, but we're not having a whole lot of luck right now with the DNA.
No, not unless this thing Voight talked about turns out to be someone that could be tied to a suspect.
Right.
Because now it's going to have to be DNA, because we just live in that DNA world, and you got guys like the super sleuths coming forward with Gary Post. So the layperson's like, didn't they solve that again? And and the running joke is the Zodiac gets solved 4 times a year.
Yeah. For sure.
So it's going to take something.
I don't think you're ever going to solve it. I don't think anybody's going to ever solve it. It's going to be like the Kennedy shooting, or it's just going to be recycled. It's this guy, and then just keep going on and on, because it's such an old case that you're never going to get real good DNA or anything from it.
No, even if you have advances in technology, which I'm sure we will, but the evidence is getting older and older.
Right.
Maybe touch DNA from the bindings at Lake Berryessa or something,
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get lucky, but I don't think anyone buried the hood in the backyard or gonna,
Yeah.
That's just not going to happen. I mean, I lean towards the fact that it probably won't be solved, at least not to everybody's satisfaction.
What do you think ever happened to the leather hood?
I probably just, burned it. Just never found again. I mean, it will never turn up.
Yeah, I'm sure.
If you did, how could you authenticate it? I mean, it'd be really hard.
Yeah.
Unless there's DNA on it that said Don Chaney.
Yeah. Do you remember a few years back, Drew, when that guy said he found the hood in an old radio? It was his dad's. Or something.
Yeah. That guy was Hodel, Steve Hodel.
Yeah. So that was pathetic.
Well, it's also a way people can make money. I could say, hey, I found the old hood in a box in the backyard, and write a book about it, or just start talking about it and make money.
Right.
Yeah, most people won't go for it, though. I mean, I think they've been jaded enough now that they won't, catch on to anything. And anybody that believes it was Gary Post because they saw his image in a block of in a stump or something, just ridiculous. It's people that aren't really into the case anyway. Like, oh yeah, that sounds good enough for me. Move on.
Can I have your the title of your book again and where I can get it?
Yeah, it's Sighting In on the Zodiac Killer, and it's on Amazon.com.
For $8.99, you said?
Yeah,
I think so. I haven't checked in a while.
Yeah, it's $8.95. And he's also got a book about DB Cooper.
Cooper.
And another case you turned me on to is the Yuba County 5.
Yuba County 5, man.
Case.
We got to do a show on that, man. Really, February is going to be the Yuba County 5 month because that's the month that these boys went missing back in February 1978. There's a real big podcast coming out on it. It's going to be huge that I've been a part of. That is an awesome case. I think it's the greatest missing persons case in American history because it's so baffling.
It's bizarre.
We still don't know what happened to these 5 guys.
And you wrote a book on that, right? So
yeah.
So I can pick that up on Amazon.
Solve it? Does he want me to solve the case?
Yeah, sure. Solve it right now, Garrett.
I'm not going to solve it right now, but I'll solve it later.
Yeah, I think. Well, yeah, you will.
Which one? The Yuba County 5 or the Zodiac?
Oh, both.
Yeah, Yuba County 5. I'd love that to get solved.
Oh my God.
Cooper.
Yeah,
Cooper solved.
I lived in Seattle for a long time of my life, and I remember when they said they found the old money in
1980.
It was
Brian Inger found it. And Brian, if you're watching, you need to send me a picture holding up my book because I know you got it, Brian. Send it. Yeah, he's a nice guy. He lives in Mena, Arkansas. He's the nicest guy in the world. He collects all this DB Cooper stuff, but Brian's still around. Yeah, the kid that found the money when he was 8 years old.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Well, Drew, I want to thank you so much for taking time out for us tonight.
Seriously.
That was awesome.
Yeah, it was really very interesting. I mean, I was glued.
Me too.
Yeah,
appreciate it, man.
I definitely want to have you back on. We should do the Yuba County 5. Give me some time to research it.
Yeah.
I'll order your
I'll send you a Kindle.
Nice. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
You said you had a degree in what?
My degree's in professional writing.
Oh, I have a bachelor's, an undergraduate degree in English. So
I'm not laughing at you, single 7.
That's awesome. Yeah, like I said, I'm not a math guy at all. That's why I never went near the ciphers. There's a couple interesting things that come up with Don's name and some stuff like that, but I never said, "Oh, there it is."
Yeah,
my name is in the 408.
If you look behind me, you can see it's called a Yith equation, and I work on it for fun. It drives me crazy because I can never.
Well, you're a time traveler, of course you do.
You were before John Titor, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I'm pretty sure John Titor took my
stick.
Yeah, that's a good word.
He did.
Yeah, someone should have just taken that story because if no one's owning up to it, and I guess it showed up on.
The thing about me and what I said when we did this story is I really didn't want to make money off of it. I didn't want to because I've done goofs all my life. I've done all kinds of crazy goofs. That was the biggest one, but I really didn't want to make money off of it. And Art Bell didn't want to have anything to do with it after what happened to him with it. So but John Titor, I think, just kind of took the shtick and went on with it.
Well,
they probably did. Titor probably stole it from that.
Well, he did.
Yeah, I'm sure he did.
He took the year, and you were You were from 2063. He said he was from 2036.
Well, that's the year I said that I was. I used that word that. I think I said I was born that year.
No, you were from the year 2063.
No, I was from the year 2063, but I was born in 2036.
Okay, yeah. So Titor definitely stole that from you.
He stole it. Yeah.
I didn't know that you understood all that when we were talking.
No, I totally do. I mean, any of the old Art Bell stuff, man.
So you heard the Single 7 broadcast?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
that was just
classics, man.
That was me just making crap up as I went along. That's all it was.
It was good radio. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it was a good story. Art Bell knew how to, after every commercial, Art Bell would be on there and giving me notes, telling me what to say and stuff. So, yeah. It was good because he was like giving me, hey, you need to talk about this. You need to talk about this.
Yeah, he's a legend, man. And he didn't screen his calls. And that's so big
Nope.
because
Yeah.
George and Tommy screen those calls. And like by the time you've told Tommy or whoever your whole story, you're totally out of gas.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't want to tell it again.
Yeah.
Well, I had
Kills
gone
it.
on his show. Actually, somebody found it. I had gone on his show 3 or 4 times before then.
Keith
before
found
I
it.
did Single 7.
Yeah,
Telling all kinds of stupid
I was
other
heartbroken,
stories.
man.
I'm not, because I still believe that he's a time traveler.
He
so.
still thinks he's a time traveler. But anyway.
Yeah, you got to watch out for those men.
Yeah.
They're going to come and get you.
They're out there.
So guys, go to I'm telling you, you've got to get this book.
Awesome.
Yeah, you need to, because he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, that was great.
I read, like I said, I read it in 2 days. I probably could have read it in 1 day, but
I was like, hey,
unfortunately, I have to go to work.
I was like, hey, Keith, did you get that book? He's like, yeah, just finish it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's a great book. So I encourage everybody to go out there. And also, do you still have drewbeesonbooks.com or is that it?
Yep. And my YouTube channel.
Yeah. And so visit Drew's YouTube channel, go out there, buy his books. Don't just buy that one, buy them all.
Yeah.
They're all interesting. So I'm getting ready to order the DB Cooper and the Yuba County 5 because I do want to do a show on the Yuba County 5.
Yeah.
I think that's
February's
awesome.
the month. That is a fascinating case.
All right. Well, Drew, thank you so much for your time. Thank you very much for coming on. Sorry about the inconvenience last week, but it's good.
No problem, man. I'm glad everybody's doing better.
Yeah, everybody is. All right. Well, you have a good night, Drew, and thanks again.
All right. Thanks, guys.
See you, Drew. That was awesome.
That was a cool. Yeah, that was so much fun.
Yeah. He knows what he's talking about, huh?
Yeah, he does. He does.
Yeah, and he's really good at speaking.
He did great.
He had me just listening.
Me too.
Like I said, I shouldn't even been a guest host.
I mean, no, we want you to be.
Yeah, I mean, I
was just glued too. That's what I love about these episodes, like on the Zodiac. Like you put it perfect, Rick. Like just listening to Keith and Drew just nerd out about Zodiac is like so fun for me. I love it. That was awesome, dude.
Yeah, and he's the only one that's really got very compelling evidence.
He's done the work for sure.
He's done the work, and I can eliminate like everybody he talked about.
Yeah.
But Cheney, when I watched that little featurette with Cheney, I thought this guy's either a pathological liar, or he's involved somehow.
I'm like a novice, but I remember listening or watching that thing and then coming right to you afterwards and be like, dude, why did he lick somebody else's stamps? So bizarre.
Oh, I know. Yeah. I mean,
I don't even know what the hell I'm talking about. And I was like, that was weird.
Well, yeah.
That's a weird thing to say.
Setting up his alibi, man,
absolutely.
for sure.
But good stuff.
That was really good.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Single 7.
You have a good night.
Good night.
Single 7 out.
Single 7 out. We'll see you later, buddy.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Single 7.
Bye-bye.
Can you believe we're just signing off with Single 7, dude?
I know. Well,
so awesome.
Hey, it's
I love it.
The time traveler.
I love it.
So
good show.
Yeah. Guys, thank you so much for showing up. And I'm sorry about last week, but it could not be helped.
Nope.
So it was just safe for everybody, like I said, to just send everybody home and separate from each other. But we will have a show next Tuesday. We don't have any idea what it's going to be about yet.
We'll get it.
But we'll have something ready for you guys.
It's going to be amazing.
Yeah. It's always going to be amazing.
It's going to be great.
But I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, and we will see you soon.